At 0204 hours, a U.S. Air Force aircraft lies broken on uneven ground under U.S. control. The perimeter forms fast and imperfect. Chem lights bend in the wind. Rotor wash drives dirt across torn metal. Visibility drops under 100 yards. Higher headquarters assesses the site as compromised and trending unrecoverable. On the ground, a female Air Force officer holds command of the rescue and security element. Accountability for personnel, equipment, and decisions rests with her. Signal integrity drops and stays dirty. Engines idle low beyond the wreckage. A cracked headset mic clicks and goes quiet. Radios pop back with partial copy. Fuel clock tightens by the minute. She measures distance in yards and time in minutes, not opinions. Wounded aircrew remain inside the defensive arc. Sensitive material sits exposed to weather and movement. Command channel degrades again. The watch on her wrist ticks under red light. The arc shrinks as teams adjust to terrain and light loss. Perimeter pressure increases from multiple directions. This is not a single moment. It is a window closing while guidance moves from caution toward withdrawal. Crash site. Night. Still contested. Evac window narrows as fuel and light fall together now under watch. Wind pushes across open ground as reports lag reality. What happens next depends on whether minutes are counted or written off. This is where routine turns into crisis. Signal clarity drops to near zero. This record documents real operations where decisions carry weight and consequences follow. It stays factual because accuracy matters when guidance and ground truth diverge. Real operations, real accountability. Audio drops out for 1 second, then radio squelch returns. The perimeter remains visible under helmet light and shifting dust. Subscribe to keep these records from disappearing, and say where you are listening from right now. The aircraft goes down during a lawful movement under U.S. control, inside an operating area already cleared for routine transit. On paper, the mission profile remains straightforward. Recover personnel, secure sensitive material, extract when conditions allow. At 0158 hours, the first reports move upward through the chain. They are brief, incomplete, and already delayed by signal loss. The recovery doctrine is clear and widely understood. On-scene leadership secures the site. Higher headquarters monitors and advises. Withdrawal remains an option, not a default. Visibility holds under 100 yards. The female Air Force officer on the ground commands the recovery element. She carries authority over security posture, casualty movement, and immediate tasking. Senior enlisted leaders execute her direction. Junior officers relay measurements, not estimates. Distance between perimeter teams stretches to 80 yards in places, compressed by terrain and debris. Chem lights mark angles that change as wind shifts smoke across the wreckage. Sensor feed loses definition at range. Overhead, aircraft cycle at holding altitudes with fuel measured in minutes, not hours. 35 minutes becomes 30. 30 becomes 20. 8. Her teams report. Gear heat stressed and dust choked. Radios require repeated checks. Headsets crackle and drop mid-sentence. In a darkened operations room miles away. Screens glow with summarized data. Watch officers compile reports from feeds, voice traffic, and sensor snapshots. Each layer smooths uncertainty into confidence. Weather interference increases on the feed. What higher headquarters sees is a static image of scattered movement and smoke. What the ground sees is controlled space, wounded personnel stabilized, and material still within reach. Situation reports lag reality. At 0212 hours, the first consolidated assessment labels. The site trending compromised. No hostile overrun is reported. No direct contact confirmed. The language remains cautious but directional. Relay delay increases to 4 minutes. The ground commander corrects distances, angles, and personnel counts. Her reports are factual and restrained. She states what holds and what does not. She does not speculate. Fuel clocks continue to bleed down. Inbound support requests are evaluated against risk matrices and visibility thresholds. Outbound extraction timelines are recalculated based on light loss and rotor wash effects. The difference between survivable and untenable remains narrow. Command authority remains intact at every level. The officer on the ground owns execution. Higher headquarters own strategic posture and authorization for withdrawal. A paper map is remarked under red light. Smoke drifts across the fuselage again, obscuring sections of the perimeter from overhead view. On the ground, those sectors remain covered. Sensor resolution degrades further. At 0226 hours, a watch officer summarizes the situation as unstable with unknown contact potential. The phrasing travels upward unchanged. The ground commander hears the assessment seconds later over a broken channel. She notes the discrepancy and responds with updated measurements. Transmission repeats twice before acknowledgement. Her responsibility remains unchanged. Personnel still breathe. Material remains secured. The arc still holds. Engines overhead. Shift pattern. Fuel projections tighten again, forcing planners to compress timelines on both ends. Options narrow without any change in ground conditions. The planning picture begins to tilt. A senior advisor flags the recovery as high exposure given visibility and feed limitations. The recommendation is framed as precautionary. Command channel stabilizes briefly. At 0234 hours, the first formal recommendation to prepare for disengagement is logged, contingent on further confirmation. Nothing on the ground has broken yet, but the classification shifts. This is the fracture point where the plan begins to slip. Light continues to fall as the night deepens toward full blackout. Chem lights and headlamps replace ambient reference points. The terrain does not change, but the way it is read does. At 0238 hours, ammunition counts are conducted again across the perimeter. Total rounds remain sufficient, but margins shrink. Wind shifts and pushes smoke back across the wreckage. Loose debris lifts under rotor wash from aircraft holding overhead. Visibility drops below 100 yards in several sectors. Perimeter spacing tightens by 10 yards on the east arc. The ground commander receives a request to reconfirm site viability. She responds with distances, angles, and personnel status. No adjectives, no speculation. Fuel remaining for inbound aircraft drops to 26 minutes. Engines idle overhead, cycling to conserve fuel. The sound is constant and low, layered with wind across open ground. A heartbeat runs steady beneath the radio traffic. Magazines are laid out and counted again. No one rushes. Counts are spoken aloud, logged, and confirmed. Ammunition reserves drop by one loadout after redistribution. At higher headquarters, the same data is reframed through risk thresholds. Reduced visibility increases exposure probability. Fuel constraints tighten timelines. The conclusion trends toward caution. Command requests confirmation that the site is no longer tenable. The ground commander replies that the perimeter still holds and wounded personnel remain stable. She states the spacing in yards and the remaining light window in minutes. Transmission delay increases to 5 minutes. Fuel remaining drops to 21 minutes. A map grid is redrawn in the dirt near the command element. Lines are adjusted to reflect new spacing. The arc is smaller now, but intact. Rotor wash kicks up again, briefly obscuring visual markers. One chem light goes dark and is replaced. A senior leader asks for worst-case projections if recovery continues. The question is procedural, not emotional. The answer is measured. Increased exposure with time, diminishing air support windows, no immediate breach. Ammunition totals are verified again. The heartbeat remains steady. At 0246 hours, visibility drops under 80 yards in 2 sectors. The adjustment is logged and relayed upward. Visibility threshold crossed in 2 sectors. The recommendation comes back framed as a precaution. Withdrawal recommended. Withdrawal recommended. The phrase is not an order yet. It is a posture. It shifts how every subsequent report is read. Fuel remaining drops to 18 minutes. The ground commander acknowledges the guidance and requests time to complete casualty movement. She does not argue the recommendation. She operates within it. Perimeter spacing compresses again by 5 yards. A radio handset passes between hands as frequencies are checked. One channel drops completely. Another comes up with static. Command channel degrades again. Ammunition totals remain above minimums but no longer comfortable. Wind shifts again, clearing smoke briefly and then pushing it back. Overhead feeds show flicker and blur. Sensor clarity degrades further at range. The difference between what is visible from above and what is controlled on the ground widens. At 0254 hours, Higher Headquarters asks for confirmation that sensitive material can be denied if withdrawal is ordered immediately. The ground commander pauses before answering. She checks distances and personnel positions. She responds that denial is possible but would require time under reduced light. Fuel. Remaining drops to 14 minutes. Aircraft overhead adjust pattern again. One peels off to conserve fuel, reducing available lift. Available air support reduces by 1 platform. The heartbeat beneath the radio traffic becomes more noticeable as transmissions stack. Ammunition redistribution occurs again to reinforce the weakest arc. Rounds remaining drop below preferred buffer. No one raises their voice. No one rushes. Movements are deliberate. At 0259 hours, the watch officer summarizes the situation as marginal with limited recovery window remaining. The language is careful, but the direction is clear. Perimeter control remains intact. Light levels approach full reliance on artificial sources. The ground commander confirms one last time that all wounded are stable and accounted for. She provides counts. She provides times. She provides yards. Fuel remaining drops to 9 minutes. Another aircraft signals it will need to depart soon or risk divert. Air window shrinks to single rotation. The recommendation to disengage is reiterated, this time with increased urgency but unchanged authority. Ammunition totals are checked again. Perimeter spacing cannot tighten further without abandoning coverage. The arc holds, but just at 0264 hours. The ground commander acknowledges the guidance and states she is preparing for the next decision point. Nothing has collapsed yet, but the next call will determine whether this remains a recovery or becomes an abandonment. The night stops getting worse and begins to hold steady. Conditions do not improve, but they stabilize enough for verification. At 0266 hours, the ground commander initiates a final perimeter walk. She moves deliberately, staying inside the arc, measuring spacing in yards and confirming angles of coverage. Wind pushes dust across her boots. Rotor wash lifts loose debris, then settles. Perimeter verification begins. She checks the north arc first. Spacing holds at 60 yards. Sightlines remain clear inside 70 yards despite smoke drift. Fuel remaining holds at 7 minutes for the nearest aircraft. She moves east. The terrain dips and rises, but coverage overlaps. Chem lights remain visible. No gaps open. Angle confirmation complete on east arc. Handwritten notes are recorded under red light. Distances are marked. Times are logged. No estimates are used. Engines cycle overhead. She crosses to the south arc. Visibility holds at 80 yards. The ground is uneven but controlled. Wounded personnel remain protected inside the perimeter. Casualty status unchanged and stable. The radio operator trails her movement, waiting for instructions, saying nothing unless required. Fuel remaining drops to 6 minutes. She completes the west arc last. This is the weakest section by earlier assessment. Spacing is tight but intact. Overlap remains. Perimeter confirmation complete. The walk takes less than 4 minutes. It changes the classification. She returns to the command element and consolidates the notes. Distances, angles, personnel counts, equipment status. Fuel clocks continue to tick. She keys the radio and transmits through the proper channel. The message is structured and restrained. She reclassifies the site as controlled with verified perimeter integrity. Updated classification transmitted. She states that the site is not overrun, not breached, and not trending, lost under current conditions. She states the remaining recovery window in minutes. She states what holds and what will fail next if delayed. No commentary is added. Command acknowledgement pending. Wind pushes smoke aside briefly, revealing the full arc. It matches the measurements. Fuel remaining drops to 5 minutes. Higher headquarters receives the transmission. The data enters the log. The previous assessment now conflicts with documented ground truth. Radio traffic pauses. A clean acknowledgement tone cuts through the wind and engines. Receipt confirmed. Responsibility shifts with the record. The classification forces reconsideration. Withdrawal is no longer precautionary. It becomes conditional. Revised authority acknowledged. The ground commander does not change posture. She maintains the perimeter and waits. She does not celebrate. She does not press. Fuel remaining drops to 4 minutes. Higher headquarters requests clarification on one sector. She responds with exact yardage and overlap confirmation. Clarification provided and logged. The watch officer updates the summary. The language changes. The site is no longer described as compromised. It is described as recoverable with constraints. System record updated. Air tasking is adjusted. One aircraft is cleared to remain overhead for an additional window based on revised risk. Additional support authorized. The perimeter remains unchanged. No new movement occurs. Fuel remaining drops to 3 minutes. The immediate threat is contained, not by force, but by alignment. The system corrects itself under documentation. Ground truth submitted at 0272 hours. The corrected assessment is formally entered. Accountability above the site is now explicit. Decisions will be owned at the appropriate level. The operation stabilizes under revised authority. The perimeter no longer defines the risk. Dawn light spreads across the site, thinning smoke and revealing terrain that hours ago existed only in fragments. Wind eases. Engines rise as aircraft lift in sequence, each departure clean and controlled. Medics continue loading wounded carefully, moving litters across ground measured in yards, not urgency. Site status confirmed stabilized at 0304 hours. The operation transitions from defense to recovery. Orders move clearly down the chain. Responsibilities remain where doctrine places them. The female Air Force officer retains on-scene authority and executes intent without commentary. There is no victory to claim, only alignment restored. This is not defiance. It is restraint. The choice to document instead of dramatize keeps the system intact. Early withdrawal would have simplified paperwork. Staying required patience, measurement, and acceptance of risk inside defined limits. The difference matters because records outlast noise. Aircraft lift away with engines steady, wind fading beneath the sound. The perimeter stands empty for the first time. Sensitive material is secured. Accountability follows the log, not the voice. Duty before optics. The chain of command functions once ground truth enters the record. Higher authority owns revised decisions. Lower authority executes without resentment. No one steps outside role or language. This is how continuity is preserved. Corrections occur without spectacle. Responsibility is neither avoided nor personalized. It is carried, documented, and transferred when appropriate. The officer does not linger. She completes final checks, hands off reports, and prepares for the next tasking. The mission ends without ceremony. What matters is not who held the line, but that the line was measured, verified, and reported accurately. The system corrects because someone stayed within it long enough to force clarity. This is how accountability works when it is allowed to, without exception or embellishment, ever. The site is quiet now. First light sits on wreckage that no longer burns. The ground holds steady. A radio is powered down. A notebook closes. The operation is complete, but the decision remains. Command traffic clears. You are the officer on scene. An order arrives based on incomplete data. It is lawful. It is flawed. One option is to execute immediately, withdraw cleanly, and accept that people and material left behind become the cost of compliance. The other option is to slow the process. Measure again. Document conditions. Transmit proof upward. You remain within authority, but you accept delay, exposure, and the risk that your career absorbs the consequence. What would you do? There is no neutral ground. Acting fast protects the chain. Acting carefully protects the truth. Both choices carry weight, and neither is free. Answer in the comments. Execute order now, or delay to prove it wrong. Daylight holds the site now. The perimeter is gone. The ground where the line stood is empty and still. Wreckage remains, but the risk does not. An aircraft lifts cleanly, turns out, and shrinks into the distance as its engine sound fades. Site status confirmed clear. Reports are finalized under U.S. authority. Measurements, timelines, and decisions are logged without emphasis. Responsibility is recorded where it belongs. No one is elevated. Nothing is erased. This is how continuity is maintained. A case file closes. More records. Next mission. These briefings exist so decisions do not disappear when conditions improve. They exist so intent, action, and consequence remain linked after the moment passes. The operation ends, but the obligation to document does not. If this record matters to you, like and subscribe so it stays visible. The next mission is already waiting, and it will be documented the same way, calmly, accurately, and without spectacle.